This stone obelisk documents the exact moment the geopolitical balance of the ancient Near East broke. In 841 BC, the Assyrian war machine shattered the defensive coalitions of the Levant. Under the command of Shalmaneser III, Assyria breached the western defenses and forced local rulers into submission. Look closely at the figure kissing the dirt before the Assyrian king. That is King Jehu of Israel. Previous Israelite monarchs had held the line against Assyria in battle. Now, Jehu is nose to the ground. This absolute submission altered the geopolitical posture of the entire region, removing a critical buffer state. And then, the threat vanished. Following Shalmaneser's death, a massive civil war erupted over royal succession and the growing power of local nobility. For 60 years, from 823 to 745 BC, the ancient world's most aggressive military force completely disappeared from the global stage. For the nations of the Levant, this abrupt disappearance created a powerful illusion of security. In capital cities like Samaria and Jerusalem, political leaders interpreted this extended silence as proof that the Assyrian danger had permanently passed. They mistook an internal Assyrian political crisis for an enduring regional peace. By treating a temporary 60-year reprieve as their new reality, the Western states abandoned their defensive vigilance, leaving themselves completely exposed for what came next. It was precisely during this dormant window that Hebrew prophets like Amos and Micah began delivering a harsh warning to the northern kingdom of Israel. Their message was absolute. The nation was heading toward total captivity and exile. To the people hearing it, the warning sounded entirely absurd. They ignored the message because, up to that point in history, no conquering force had ever taken entire whole populations into captivity. The concept of mass, systemic deportation simply did not exist in the ancient world. That changed in 745 BC. Emerging from the political vacuum, a military general seized the Assyrian throne and took the name Tiglath-Pileser III. The dormancy was over. Tiglath-Pileser replaced the old opportunistic raids with a 5-part architectural system designed to transform Assyria into a riot-proof empire that could sustain itself for centuries. The Assyrian Civil War had exposed the primary vulnerability of ancient empires, the provincial nobility. An empire was traditionally divided into large states run by powerful governors. Over time, these local nobles accumulated enough wealth and military loyalty to challenge the central throne directly. As this map illustrates, Tiglath-Pileser countered this by attacking the nobility's power base. He purposefully divided the existing Assyrian territory, effectively multiplying the total number of provinces across the state. The mathematical logic was simple. By shrinking the size of each territory and increasing the overall number of governors, he diluted their individual resources. No single noble could gather enough concentrated power to threaten the king. He applied a similar structural reform to foreign policy. Previously, defeated nations were allowed to function as semi-independent vassal states, paying tribute while keeping their local kings on the throne. Tiglath-Pileser revoked that autonomy. Under his new system, conquered lands were directly annexed. They were stripped of their political independence, heavily garrisoned with Assyrian troops, and managed by highly controlled puppet governments installed by Nineveh. By fracturing the power of his own nobles and erasing the independence of foreign kings, Tiglath-Pileser insulated the central throne. He built an internally stable political foundation that made systemic uprisings nearly impossible to organize. With internal stability secured, the next bottleneck was sheer geography. This map shows the massive perimeter of the Assyrian territory, spanning thousands of miles. Because of this distance, communication latency was historically measured in weeks. That delay was a fatal operational flaw. If a border state rebelled, a latency of several weeks gave insurgents the necessary time to organize troops, forge alliances, and fortify their positions before the Assyrian capital was even notified. Tiglath-Pileser bypassed this problem by establishing the ancient equivalent of a Pony Express. He built a vast, state-funded communication network connecting the farthest borders directly to the capital. The physical mechanics relied on administrative nodes placed at strategic intervals. Each station contained royal stables manned by servants of the king, ensuring that official intelligence couriers always had immediate access to fresh horses. This network slashed intelligence travel time from weeks down to mere days. The king could monitor the entire perimeter of his empire with unprecedented speed. By shrinking communication latency, he choked out local rebellions before they could successfully mobilize. Peripheral insurgents simply did not have the time to organize a defense before the Assyrian military arrived. Even with rapid communication, empires inevitably faced revolts. Tiglath-Pileser recognized that the root cause driving these rebellions was sociological. Conquered people draw their strength, alliances, and theological identity directly from their ties to their geographic homeland. His solution was the most ruthless innovation of his reign. As this diagram tracks, he instituted a policy of systematic, massive population deportation. The historical scale of this policy is staggering. Tiglath-Pileser himself recorded deporting over 400,000 people. Over the next century, his successors scaled this up, forcibly relocating an estimated 4.5 million individuals across the map. By scattering these groups across distant territories, the Assyrians effectively broke the local alliances and friend networks required to launch an organized revolt. This policy of mass capture also solved a second, internal demographic crisis. Nearly 2 centuries of continuous warfare had inflicted heavy casualties on the native Assyrian population, devastating their social fabric and draining their military manpower. To solve this, Tiglath-Pileser executed a radical military pivot. He transitioned the standing army of the Assyrian Empire so that it consisted primarily of conscripted soldiers drawn directly from the conquered nations. To maintain loyalty, the command structure was tightly partitioned. The rank-and-file infantry were foreign captives, but they were strictly officered by native Assyrians. Separated from their homelands, these foreign troops had no alternative power base to retreat to. By exporting rebellion through mass deportation and outsourcing combat casualties by conscripting their defeated enemies, the Assyrians built a demographic engine capable of sustaining heavy, continuous warfare indefinitely. The synergy of these 5 innovations allowed Assyria to mobilize on multiple fronts simultaneously. The borders expanded toward Urartu in the north and Babylon in the south at a rate that previous monarchs could not sustain. As this expanding front approached the west, panic spread through the Levant. The Arameans in Damascus and the Israelites in Samaria formed an anti-Assyrian coalition. Desperate to bolster their numbers, they attempted to force King Ahaz of Judah to join their revolt. Ahaz made a catastrophic miscalculation. Ignoring the explicit warnings of the prophet Isaiah, the Judean king appealed directly to Tiglath-Pileser, inviting the Assyrian military into the region in exchange for protection against his neighbors. The Assyrian response was blistering. In 734 BC, Tiglath-Pileser marched his forces down the coastal plain, cutting off any potential military aid from Egypt. Then he pivoted inland, systematically devastating the Galilean countryside. He turned his full military weight against the real power in the coalition, Damascus. The Assyrians captured the city, executed its king, and immediately fed the surviving Aramean population into the deportation network. The Levant's reliance on small-scale regional alliances proved insufficient against the centralized speed and resource pool of the reformed Assyrian military. What remained of the northern kingdom initiated one final desperate rebellion. In response, Tiglath-Pileser's successor, Shalmaneser V, marched on the Israelite capital and laid a suffocating siege to the walls of Samaria, starting in 725 BC. The city held out for 3 years, but the outcome was a mathematical certainty. In September of 722 BC, Samaria fell. The Assyrians rounded up 28,000 Israelites and processed them directly into the deportation machine. As you can see on the map, this was not a temporary subjugation. The 10 tribes of the northern kingdom went into captivity and were entirely swallowed by the imperial network. The state of Israel was permanently erased from the geopolitical map. To the Assyrians, it was just another successful border action, occupying a minor entry in their provincial records. But within the Hebrew Bible, it represented a monumental theological breaking point. The warnings delivered by Amos and Micah 60 years earlier had materialized exactly as spoken. The judgment did not arrive as an arbitrary act of destruction, but through the grim, methodical perfection of the ancient world's most advanced geopolitical engine.